Hey guys, Quantakedavra here. I've been a little swamped this past week with life stuff, edits, and a couple of glitchy surprises from the universe itself. So a few friends of the channel stepped in to help bring some of today's stories to life. Choose the red pill, sit back, and enjoy these real glitch in the matrix stories. This happened when I was around 9 years old. Everyone was sitting at the table eating dinner. At that time, we lived in a noisy neighborhood. While we were eating, I noticed things were getting more hectic than usual. My mom was in the kitchen moving pots and pans around and making a ruckus. My sisters, 13 and 16, were yelling at each other. The TV was on full blast. I remember hearing a bunch of little friends outside playing and yelling at the top of their lungs. The ice cream truck song in the street was blaring. My palms were getting sweaty and I started feeling extremely uneasy. Things seemed to be getting louder and louder by the second. Then everything, and I mean everything, came to a dead silence all at once. When it did, all I heard was a woman's soft voice say, "Hello?" It sounded so loud and yet so soft, as if whoever said it was directly in front of me. I looked up quickly. My dad was staring directly at me and he said, "Did you hear that too?" I just nodded at him because I was seriously terrified. My sister finally said, "Hear what?" We tried to tell them what happened, but nobody else noticed anything at all. Not even the fact that it was super noisy and then just silent. There were no kids outside, no ice cream truck. The TV was at a decent volume, and my sisters were nice and calm. My dad and I still remember that day. I'm now 23, and it's something I'll never forget. All throughout my life, a lot of weird shit has happened to me, and this one is up there with the weirdest. If you guys like it, I might try sharing some more. This happened when I was around 16 years old. I was a fairly normal kid. Spent a bit too much time on my computer, though. Because of that, I made a lot of friends with both nerdy kids and popular kids. It all starts when I met this nerdy kid, who I'll call Gavin for the sake of the story. Gavin and I started becoming decent friends because of our interest in World of Warcraft. Gavin was really socially awkward in real life, although he was a cool dude to talk to online. He's also a genius, with an IQ of around 180 as far as I can remember. I did the same test as him at school and I got 103, so he's the real deal. Gavin and I came to each other's houses a lot after we became good friends. We would chill and play Warcraft, watch videos on YouTube, play chess. He was a pretty cool guy, and soon enough he was one of my best friends. One day I decided to go around his house uninvited. Might be a dick move, but I was a teenager at the time, and I just thought we were really good friends, so it would be cool. I knocked on his door, and this older-looking guy opened, around 40 years old, I'd say. He had a little bit of gray hair and a beard. At first, I assumed it was Gavin's dad, because they looked eerily similar, but then I remembered that Gavin doesn't have a dad. I then assumed he was some relative. I asked him if Gavin was home. He laughed and told me that he was Gavin. I found this a bit weird, but it could just be a coincidence, or Gavin was simply named after his uncle or something. I told him that I was looking for 16-year-old Gavin and described him to the guy. He started looking at me uneasy. After some hesitation, he told me that Gavin wasn't home. I asked him when he would be home and didn't really question who he was. After thinking for a few seconds, he gave me a time. So I came back over when he said, and my friend, the 16-year-old Gavin, opened the door. I told him that I had talked to his relative earlier. He told me that he has no relative with the same name as him. He also told me that he was home at the time I came by and talked to that 40-year-old man. We both found this extremely weird, especially since the guy looked so much like Gavin. I still keep in touch with Gavin, who at this moment in time happens to be studying quantum mechanics. We still haven't told anyone about this story. In November of 2012, I was on regular patrol when a Dodge Challenger SRT-8 blew past me on the highway, going about 99 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. I whipped my car around and the chase was on. The Challenger was killing me, with speeds reaching about 131 miles per hour. That's as fast as my Crown Vic would go. On one particular road the Challenger turned down, there was about a 4-mile stretch of straight but hilly road that has a T-section at the end. I almost lost sight of the car, but happened to catch his taillights just in time to see him turn east at the intersection. Now, this is where it gets weird. I remember coming up to the T-intersection within, I'd say maybe 200 yards of it. I looked down at my speed and noticed that I was going way too fast to make it, approximately 95 to 100 miles per hour. I remember hitting the brakes as hard as I could and seeing the dirt berm coming up quick. I vividly remember closing my eyes and asking God to watch over my kids because I knew I had made a fatal mistake and was a dead man. But nothing happened. No loud crash, no tire squealing, no glass, no airbags, nothing of that nature. I opened my eyes and I was traveling eastbound from the northbound road going about 50 miles per hour. It still drives me crazy wondering what happened. Did I die and this is all a dream? Did the universe reach out and save me? I even caught the guy, as a highway patrolman had put out a few stop sticks a few miles down the road. From the video on the trooper's dash cam, I was 35 seconds behind the Challenger. Any ideas that might explain this other than divine intervention?
About 7 or 8 years ago, I worked at a Little Caesars Pizza. Usually I would work inside on the pizzas, but we had just started up this Monday Madness deal where we sold pizzas for $4, so we needed someone to advertise. I was a wild and weird metalhead, so I took up the position on Mondays of just going out there, throwing around a sign to get attention and bring people in for pizza. Not exactly glamorous, but I had fun. One day while I was out there doing my thing, I see a van coming straight at me. It jumps the curb and slams into me, and I feel it crush me against the electrical box controlling the streetlights. I see a quick flash as the traffic lights flick off, and then black out. I gasp, but I'm still on the corner and nothing has happened. No van or anything. Well, I was a little shaken up, so I decide to pack up and walk back to the store for a break. I walk no more than 15 feet away from that corner when I hear a crash. I look back and a van has just hopped the curb into the electrical box, and I watch the traffic lights flick off. Needless to say, I took the rest of the day off. Still think about it from time to time.
At this house I lived in from the time I was about 4 until I was 15, my bedroom was at the very end of the hallway, but it wasn't always the last room. There was another room past my bedroom that my twin brother and I would occasionally go into to play. It was filled with random stuff, but I don't remember anything specific that was inside. Nobody ever explicitly told us not to go in the room, but it always felt like we were sneaking around, somewhere we weren't supposed to be when we went inside. We would forget about the room for long periods of time, and then randomly remember it and decide to go inside. This happened a lot for the first few years we lived there. We even took our best friend inside a few times. One day, when it had been a few months since we went inside, I remembered it and suggested we go in and play. We walked to the end of the hall, but the room was gone. It never appeared again. And neither of our parents remember the room.
Growing up, my grandmother used to always tell me a story. A week before I was born, she and my grandfather had my parents over for dinner. They lived down the street from each other, so this was a fairly common thing. The phone rang just as they were about to sit down. My grandmother picked it up, and the man on the other end asked for Annabelle, which just so happened to be the name my parents had recently decided on for me. This is a relatively uncommon name, especially for someone from New Hampshire, where everyone at the time was naming their daughters Jessica. If you look at statistics from that time, something like 1 in 29,000 people were named Annabelle in the USA. So yeah, pretty uncommon. My grandmother laughed and said, "She isn't here just yet, try back in a week," and said that she'd take his number for me to call back later. The man did give his number, and she wrote it down, just as a joke for my parents to remember. Time went on as normal, and I was born and happily named Annabelle. My grandmother, for whatever reason, decided to keep the note that she had scribbled the man's number on. It was stashed away in a photo album that was soon to be filled with many pictures of me. She loved to tell this story, so I heard it many times growing up. Flash forward 25 years to tonight, literally this evening. I was visiting my grandparents with my fiancé, and they wanted to flip through old albums to show him what I was like as a baby. The scrap paper is in there, and my grandmother grabs it and happily begins blurting out that story. He had never heard it before, as this was the first time he had met my grandparents since we lived far away from them. He asked to see the piece of paper, and his face goes white. It was my phone number growing up. Now, my fiancé is from Virginia, and my family is from New Hampshire, so it's not like our families knew each other even vaguely 25 years ago. He's 2 years older than me, so he had already been born when the call was made to my grandmother. And he lived in the same house from the time he was born till the time he left for college. The number was definitely his family's when the call was made 25 years prior. The only conclusion we could come to was that his dad had misdialed when he looked for someone named Annabelle, and it just so happened by coincidence to be my grandparents' number. The saddest and kind of creepiest part of this story is that my fiancé's father passed away last year. We can't even ask if he remembers.
My family has lived in the same house for 35 plus years. I was 12 when my grandmother came to live with us after my grandfather passed away. She needed a wheelchair and near constant care. We had to install a lift onto one side of the front stairs. It was a metal platform secured to a track with an electric motor powering it. I was fascinated by the lift and its installation. Not only did it promise to be a poor man's amusement park ride, but the whole process of drilling holes in the concrete steps, epoxying in anchors, and leveling the tracks was right up the alley of my wannabe engineer self. It was immediately clear that my grandmother needed more care than we could provide, even with a visiting nurse for when we were at school and work. She stayed a little more than a month before having to be put into a live-in facility. She died a few months later. The lift was a symbol of grief, a monument to my parents' inability to care for my grandma. When I got caught riding it for fun, my mom didn't yell. She just looked at me with her lip quivering and dashed inside. I was guilt-stricken, and it felt worse than any punishment could have made me feel. I'd never rode it again. Soon my father had it removed, which cost more than it should have. This was depressing on many levels. In its place, there were sawed-off anchors running up one side of our steps. There were rusty little bolt cross-sections with a thin ring of epoxy around them. I remember tracing them with my finger while sitting on the stairs with my first girlfriend, while I tried to get up the nerve to kiss her. The next year, the anchors were gone. No rusty circles, no chips where they were, nothing. I assumed my father had them patched so my mom wouldn't have to look at them. I couldn't figure out how they had done such a neat job, so I had to ask. My father looked at me in the strangest way I'd ever seen him look. His face went from puzzled to disgusted to angry. He got that calm tone that I hated, the "I've already decided what I think of your shit" tone. He said it wasn't funny to joke about my grandmother that way, how much it would crush my mom if she heard it. He asked if I was having trouble at school and assumed I was trying to shock him to get his attention. According to my father, my grandmother never moved in. The lift was never purchased or installed. My grandma went from her house to an assisted living facility after my grandfather passed away. A photo from the time no longer shows the lift. I chipped away at the stairs and there were no holes or even remnants of holes. And what about the money? That lift cost thousands of dollars we could scarcely afford. Removing it cost another big chunk of money. Altogether, it was the price of our family car. If we didn't spend it, is it still there?
If I look at my father's bank records, will they show the emergency funds we spent? This was probably our biggest single expenditure that wasn't our house or a car. I lurked around Glitch in the Matrix forums, and they all seemed imaginative. I couldn't really understand the things being described. Changing worlds and fake memories. My grandmother coming to stay with us was when I lost my innocence. I saw adult diapers and drool puddles. I went from an inquisitive kid who wanted to ride a wheelchair lift to an introspective teenager who saw how ugly life ends. It was the first time I saw my parents really fail at something, and it humanized them to me. Making my mom cry like I did was heartbreaking. What the hell is happening to me? Am I completely crazy? Is this what going insane is like? What else am I crazy about? Is all this invented by my mind? If it's not, is that any better?
So here's a little backstory. My friend, who is African American, is shooting for a documentary that she's going to present at an upcoming film festival. She filmed at locations in Canada, the USA, and South Africa. A few months back, I got a call from her in which she told me she wanted to visit India and shoot there also. I was one of her Indian friends, and so me and my younger sister made plans for the three of us and booked tickets to India from the 20th of June to the 10th of August. Another thing, my family in India lives near a city called Jagril, which is about 6-7 hours away from the Delhi airport. We reached India in the evening of June 21st and all decided to book a hotel there for the night, with the intention of going to see my family the next day. Morning comes and we leave from Delhi to my village in a taxi, and the drive there was about 7 hours because of traffic. The moment the taxi pulls up outside my house, my sister and I are obviously very excited because we're seeing our family for the first time in 5 years, and we're expecting everyone to be really happy and excited to see us. The gate was open, so the three of us enter, and from far away I see my aunt knitting. She looks up and gives me a smile. That's all. Okay, maybe she didn't recognize us. We go closer and enter the house, and I see my grandma, who comes up to me and hugs me and then says, "We didn't get a chance to talk much last night, but today I will make sure you sit with me so we have enough time to catch up on things." Okay. While we're walking closer, my other aunt comes in with a tray of snacks and says, "Did you guys find the cable you were looking for?" At this point, everything seems a bit odd. These guys recognize us, they know exactly who we are, but they aren't even excited to see us after so long, and they keep asking and saying confusing things. We sit down, and after hearing a bunch of other questions, I realize I really need to figure out what's going on. I ask my aunt what cable she's talking about. She tells me that the three of us woke up early and left for the nearby city to go purchase what they described as an extension cord. Wait, what? This is the first time I entered this house in 5 years. What the hell are they talking about? I look to my sister and she says, "Oh shit, Karan, we couldn't even find the cord anywhere. How are we going to charge our devices now?" She knew what they were on about. I shoot my sister a very confused look and tell her I don't know what cord she's talking about. I tell her our whole family is acting strange. They're not even excited to see us after so long. My sister goes, "Oh, you think they have to jump on us in excitement every time they see us now?" I ask what she's talking about, and she says, "Remember yesterday when we first arrived?" At this point, my sister is annoyed because she feels I'm acting strange and need to communicate better. After showering and eating, when we all decide to go and take a nap, I decide I really need to talk to my sister. I tell her, "We never met our family yesterday. We were in Delhi at the hotel." And there we go. Neither my sister nor my friend remember staying at the hotel. According to them, we took a taxi from Delhi to my village right when we landed. But that's impossible. I remember the hotel.
I remember sleeping in the room with the long-ass curtains and the view from the balcony. I remember eating the hotel food. I remember the bathrooms and even the fuzzy slippers that I was debating whether to steal. I didn't. The other two didn't have any memories of the hotel, and according to them, we spent the previous night in this very house. But that can't be. I remember leaving in a taxi from the Delhi hotel, and the whole ride me and my sister were discussing how excited our family was going to be when we finally arrived. So what was happening? This can't be a prank. No way. Was this a glitch? I think so. Am I still creeped out? Oh, hell yes. And no, I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't hallucinating. I don't do any sort of drugs either. But every time I think of this experience, oh boy, my stomach turns. Because whatever happened that day, I'll never understand.
All my life, my mom and I have been somehow mentally connected. Strange little things like she'd go grocery shopping, and I'd sit at home thinking about how I wished for cinnamon buns, and lo and behold, she'd come home with cinnamon buns. Not one isolated incident, tons of them. My family referred to it as braining or brained. For example, Mom went to the store and I wanted some Twizzlers and she brought some back. I must have brained her. Another time, when I was about 6 or 7, my dad was shaving off his beard, which he had had for a long time, as a surprise for my mom. It was a secret, and he left it to the last minute. My mom arrived home while he was still finishing up, and I was sitting on the counter of the bathroom. He told me to go and distract her for 5 minutes while he finished, so I hopped down and went to greet her. She pulled me onto her lap to say hi, and the second she touched me, she jerked her hand back like I had shocked her. Then she looked deeply into my eyes for a second and said, "Your dad shaved off his beard. I'll have to pretend to be surprised." I was devastated, thinking somehow I had betrayed him by letting her know. Not my fault, we seemed to read each other's minds. But maybe these were all coincidences. Who knows? The main story here is about one particularly chilling incident that my dad said he will never forget. I was about 8 years old, my sister 10. My sister and my mom went to do some errands in my mom's truck. I was sitting outside the garage door, playing in the dirt, while my dad did some repairs on something or other. After a while, my dad looked at me and said, kind of to himself, "Well, it's been some time since your mom and sister left. I wonder what's taking them so long." I didn't even look up from playing. I just casually said, "It's okay, Dad. They're in the hospital. Mom will call soon, but don't worry. They're mostly okay." My dad stood there staring at me for about 30 seconds. Then the phone rang. Upstairs in the house. Hospital. Mom's truck was T-boned. My mom broke her wrist, and my sister was unharmed. My dad's jaw dropped. He looked at me as if I was an alien. I guess it was a strange experience for him. He packed me and my brother into his car, and we went to fetch my mom and sister. I distinctly remember how I knew this information. There was a flash in my head, like a picture was deposited there. It was of the interior of the hospital, and I just had this picture of flash in my mind, and suddenly I knew all this information, almost like it had been downloaded. Very odd. I'd never been inside that hospital in my life, and yet, when we arrived, it was identical to how it flashed in my head. Glitch in the Matrix? Who knows?
This happened about 2 years ago when I was going through the necessary classes to get my driving license. The classroom portion of the class was several sessions of 3 hours and was done through my local YMCA.
It was about halfway through that night's class, so I'll say it was around 7:30 p.m. The classroom is fairly large, and the tables and chairs were set up in a U shape, so everyone's back was facing the wall. One of the walls was lined with windows, and that just so happened to be the wall my back was to. It was the middle of the lecture, and we were learning about the proper technique to merge onto the highway. The teacher was in the middle of drawing the roads on the board when all of a sudden I heard a window shatter, followed by the loudest ringing or buzzing sound in my ears. At the same time, it was as if someone had slammed my head onto the table with an incredible amount of force. The most startling thing was, when my head hit the table, I didn't feel it. As a matter of fact, I didn't feel anything. My head was lighter, but for some reason I couldn't move a muscle. It felt as if my entire body was locked into place. While everyone else in the room was screaming, I could hear the sound of chairs being knocked over as people ran, and I even heard a few people vomiting on the tile floor. The whole time, I was staring at the white table that was now covered in brain matter and blood. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Then, in an instant, I was back. Everything was normal again, except for a slight ringing sensation in my ear. I immediately turned around to see the window still intact behind me, and the teacher had just begun drawing the highway on the board. Needless to say, I didn't sleep well that night, and I sure as hell wasn't going to drive home when my dad came to pick me up. Too long didn't read? Got wall bang quickscoped in driver's ed and hit X to skip the kill cam and respawn. Good one. Hey guys, Quantakedavra here again, and thank you so much for listening. Huge shout out to everyone who helped with this video. Your voices and vibes were seriously appreciated. I'll be speaking to you guys very, very soon. Until then, stay strange, stay suspicious, and remember, the glitch always blinks first.